Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Juliette Beauchamp and I'm here with Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon, as well as Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus. We are live on YouTube on our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk, as well as Computer World's LinkedIn page. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts while we are discussing, please do let us know either in the comments if you're on LinkedIn and in the live chat if you're on YouTube. So we've got two topics today, but the topic that I want to start out with is some 5G modem talk. So Apple is, it seems approaching the time where it's going to mostly sever ties with Qualcomm. That's who's supplying them with 5G modems now in favor of making their custom designed modems for future iPhones. So I guess I'll throw this to either of you, whoever feels more compelled to answer. But this is a long time coming, yeah.
I can jump in here real quick, at least to get the ball rolling, Juliette.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Evans wrote about this for Computer World, I think it was yesterday. And what he did was pull together several different little tidbits and reports to try to get an idea for where Apple's going. I don't think it should surprise anyone that Apple would like to develop its own 5G modem for its devices, for its phones. It sort of set aside, I guess, what you'd call a contentious relationship with Qualcomm in 2019 so that it could get access to Qualcomm's 5G modems and get those 5G iPhones on the market. Because, by 2019, 2020, that was becoming a must-have. Having done that now, here we are in 2022, the new iPhones will be out this fall, the iPhone 14. Apple's ready to move on. I'm sure, as Michael will tell you, Apple always wants to own the whole stack. And so Johnny Evans had picked up on a DigiTimes report that Apple is talking to new suppliers like ASE Technology and Siliconware Precision. There was some legal maneuverings and an ongoing fight between Apple and Qualcomm that indicated Apple might want to, break things off down the road. And Apple has apparently been talking to TSMC about manufacturing the 5G modems. So it's not quite clear when. I'd be surprised if it were this fall, more likely to be the fall of maybe 23 or maybe even 24 before this, this all gets wrapped up. But it's another step by Apple to, as I said, own the whole stack. That's kind of where we're seeing it. Michael, does that jive with what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, this is nothing new. So a bunch of years ago, maybe 2018, Intel was supposed to be making the 5G modem. A 5G mobile modem that was Apple was going to be their main customer, and that abruptly fell apart. Within days, Apple settled this lawsuit with Qualcomm, signed a multi-year agreement to supply chips, which in this case is I don't know what other little chips Apple gets from Qualcomm. I know they also source from Broadcom and Skyworks or something. So I'm not sure what else they get from Qualcomm, but the biggest one right now is the modem. And so within days they settled their long-standing lawsuit with Qualcomm, re-upped their negotiations to supply chips for it was just at the time it was a multi-year agreement. They didn't really settle on the terms or at least make them public. And Apple bought the remains of Intel's modem business. So that all happened within like a week.
Yep.
So it was clear that Apple was like, we're in trouble here.
We need a 5G modem fast.
Our plan A just got blitzed.
Yeah.
So all that happened in quick succession, and it was clear that Apple was basically caught flat-footed and had to do something. So yes, they're getting modems from Qualcomm. The iPhone 14 will have that, because if they're just talking now, and we don't know how true these reports are, Digitimes has a terrible track record when it comes to rumors, but a really good one when it comes to supply chain stuff. So I'm like, I believe that one. But if they're talking now, this is for next year, and it's also not going to be all of next year. Like Apple's not going to just go 100% its own modems. It has to ramp up that production, so it'll be 60% Apple, 40% Qualcomm, whatever it is, until they're all gone. And the idea here is, there's a bunch of reasons why Apple cares about these little chips: power, and space are the two big ones. So we're talking about battery life, and we're talking about the thinness and the other components that go around the phone. The reason why Apple wants to make everything is because it wants to be in control of the stack, but more so the design and the functionality of these things. We just ran a story on Macworld over at Tech Advisor. They have the S22, the Exynos version. So the Samsung's new Exynos 2200 chip, which was supposed to be a big deal. They teamed up with AMD on the graphics side, and it was supposed to be a really monumental. This is the chip that's going to play with the big boys, and it is a mess. Like, I swear to you, you look at the charts, and the Android people entered the Macworld Twitter, and they all call me a jerk. But if you look at the charts, it is not. It's slower than an iPhone 11.
I saw that story. Yeah, exactly.
Now,
yeah,
and so that's what happens when you have to buy, when you can't make your own components. So then Samsung has to buy Qualcomm Snapdragon to make a phone that's viable in the US. But that causes all sorts of other compromises with the ISP and with the internal of the phone, the design, and all these things. So, and I'm not saying Qualcomm is bad. They make fantastic chips, but you're buying your main part from another company and you're at their mercy. They didn't have an integrated 5G modem for a while. Like, there are things that you have, sacrifices you have to make. That's why Samsung wants to make a chip that's as good as Qualcomm's and Apple's. So they can, now they have to sell two now. One in the US. So that affords them no design abilities to beyond, okay, this is here, this has to be here, no matter what their chip can do. And they really wanted to bring that Exynos chip to the rest of the world, and they just can't. It's just not good enough.
To your point, Michael, and you illustrated divinely there. You're at the mercy of your lowest common denominator supplier.
And again, Qualcomm is great. Like, I'm not disparaging them.
Right.
But you're still, Intel was great too, but Apple was at their mercy when it came to designing the Macs. And we see almost immediately the benefits of Apple Silicon.
Another point to make too, thinking about the 5G chips, 5G really is rolling out, globally now.
Sure.
And there's been a lot of talk that Apple at some point might want to roll out 5G in like laptops maybe, or other devices that.
Unfortunately, there hasn't been any rumors of that, but I would like to see that.
Well, maybe it's
willing it into existence.
Maybe it's not a serious rumor, but I'm going to start it now.
Yeah, no, please, because it baffles me.
I think it makes perfect sense.
And it's not just Apple; it's Microsoft and Intel and not Intel, Microsoft and HP and every laptop. Dell. There are no real popular 5G or any laptop with any chip inside them other than Wi-Fi. And okay, fine, I can tether my phone, but that's a pain. Yeah. And it also ruins my phone's battery life. And it also, there are huge benefits to having a mobile modem built inside of a MacBook or any laptop.
Right. So, again, maybe it's just hopeful thinking on my part, but if Apple is going to own the whole stack, it at least makes it a little simpler for it to add these kinds of chips to other devices such as laptops. Sure.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think that's a large
whether they will
why.
or not, we don't know. You're right. We don't know whether they ever will actually get around to doing that. But I think it makes perfect sense. And in an increasingly 5G world, where maybe Wi-Fi isn't always available or broadband isn't always available, 5G access could be a great leveler across the globe if you've got the devices that can access it. Anyway, we could go on. I know about 5G for days. But.
I think there's some truth to that. That on the phone, they can't not have a modem on the phone, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to outsource that. They don't have to do that on a Mac. Like, they can say, well, let's just wait till we do ours, and it doesn't kill battery, and it doesn't affect the design, and it doesn't affect the way that things are arranged, the ports and whatever else. So maybe in 2 years we will see a 5G laptop. But I would buy one. Especially if the data plan was like $10 or something.
None of the iPads have 5G, right?
Yeah, of course they do. All of them.
They do. Okay, they do.
Well, the iPad Air doesn't, but it will.
It will. That's what I was thinking of. That's the one that's going to be revealed theoretically next month.
Next month, yeah.
Okay.
It'll be the mini, but a larger version of it. It'll get the center stage. It'll get the 5G modem. Yeah. So the iPad Pros both have 5G.
Okay.
The iPad Mini has 5G, and the iPad Air, because Apple is weird with the way they update stuff, still has LTE.
Okay.
Gotcha. So, and I mean, this is really what you guys were alluding to, but I mean, it seems like it would be a natural step. It probably makes a lot of sense for, Apple as a business to own more of to own the full stack, to be in charge of sort of the entire, a lot of the hardware, and, unite that with its,
all those
ecosystem.
all those little components.
Yeah.
There was a story late last year that they're looking at even the more granular pieces that they get from Broadcom and Skyworks, and to have all of the control, from even like the little, I don't know, wireless chips and USB chips and those little controller chips.
Yeah.
Like they want to make all that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it makes sense for them, but I guess I'm kind of wondering like what that means for all of these suppliers.
Well, they don't care about that.
Apple doesn't care. The suppliers care.
No, the suppliers care. Apple
They
could
care a lot.
care
Yeah.
less, Yeah.
Yeah, but what about the suppliers? I guess I'm kind of wondering like where
it's
they
true.
fit into the market.
I mean, they're at the mercy of the people who buy stuff from them. I mean, we've seen that before. Back when Apple bought all of its parts from people, there would be a rumor that they're getting so-and-so camera module from so-and-so small little company we never heard of, and the stock jumps 300%. That happens all the time. These little companies rise and fall. Broadcom and Qualcomm, like they're fine. But yeah, there's a lot of little companies that make little chips, and that's their specialty.
Yeah.
And basically, yeah, you can say that, Apple could put some of them out of business by not buying. When Apple's your sorry, Tim, when Apple's your customer, I mean, that's a lot of orders.
I'm just going to say, but doesn't Apple and don't other companies also have a tendency when they find these companies and they want to bring that talent in-house, they just buy the company?
There's that too. Apple's bought
I
plenty.
mean, if it's
Sure.
not then
If it's small enough. Right.
Qualcomm, but a small company that's
Sure.
got the expertise that they specifically want for a specific piece of hardware, software, they've got enough money, they can certainly buy it,
There's a famous story that Apple bought, I don't know, 10 years ago, a company called LiquidWorks. And from the best that we can tell, the reason why was because for the SIM card ejector tool. So
Really?
yeah. That was,
I
if
hadn't
you
heard
go look, they do $800 million or whatever a small company would cost. $300 million. That's pocket change for Tim Cook at this point. So yeah, if it's beneficial to them and if it's something that they can use for years and decades to come, for sure they can just kind of buy up these companies. But a lot of times it's not as easy as just saying we want to buy you. So there's pushback and there's regulatory stuff and monopoly fears and things like that.
Gotcha. So coming in, maybe 2023. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be a big part of whatever the iPhone announcement is. So
I don't think so. I don't think
Really?
we'll even know. Apple's not going to say that.
all right.
Nah.
You don't think Apple will say it with
We
our
won't
own-
know until the iFixit they're done. Nuh-uh. They're not
Well,
gonna-
but then what'll
That's
happen?
not a big deal.
there will be-
Unless it's somehow, and I don't even think that there's anything that it
It's
can
going to be
do that the
magical,
Qualcomm-
Michael. Magical.
I mean, customers don't care unless it does something different. And I was just going through my head. I don't think there's anything that the iPhone 13 is missing out on when it comes to 5G. It has ultra wideband. It has sub-6. Battery life obviously isn't an issue because the iPhone 13 has great battery life. Unless there's some breakthrough, and I for the life of me, I can't see what that would be. We won't know.
All right.
We will know once someone tears it down and say,
Sure.
"Oh, look, there's an Apple modem in here now."
And
Sure.
then you're going to have the long-running debate about whether the Apple 5G modem is better and faster.
There's that.
than
There was that
the
for a while.
Qualcomm 5G
Yeah, sure.
modem, and
Sure.
I got an Apple modem.
I got
so
an
I've
extra
the good one,
45 minutes of battery life and blah blah blah. Yeah, sure.
I can see the
Yeah.
forums filling up now with debates. Yeah.
I'm gonna actually pre-write that story and put it in our CMS, so it's ready to go.
Okay, good.
So
Planning ahead.
yeah. So really quickly, we just have one quick sort of comment from one of our LinkedIn viewers, and basically saying like, what's the use to have new devices released very often, and then like it's just to make money? I would say yes.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. The
I
use
mean,
and
that's the
use
reason
and-
it really is to do anything.
yeah. So
Well, but I mean, yeah, but it also, I mean, ideally, to make money, you need to be offering something new, different, advanced.
true.
And I mean, especially in the world of technology, I mean, this is not like, paper manufacturing. technology changes very quickly. And if you are a leading technology company, you have to stay current. And so to do that, you have to do continuous updates.
It's also on us to not be sucked into that game. A perfect example is the Apple Watch. So the Series 7 is basically a Series 6.
Yeah.
It has a slightly bigger screen. And, we ran stories and other outlets did as well, saying like, well, what is this? Like, why would they release it? Why would they release it at all? It's like, well, all right, it's the same price. Apple's not necessarily saying you need this. So if you have a 6, okay. But if you're in the market for a new watch and you can buy a better one, that's
At the
why?
same price.
Sure, fine. So what's Apple doing wrong? It's not Apple. It's us saying, well, I want that new thing now because it's new.
I never do that. I never. No.
And I'm a victim of it too. Of course, you put a new name on something. I even do it with like cereal boxes. Like I'll see something in the store, the new and improved flavor, or this thing has marshmallows now. That's what we are as consumers. We see the new thing and we want it. And Apple, Samsung, Intel, they all get criticism like, well, why are you releasing something so soon, so quickly? Because the thing that I got 8 months ago now is obsolete. Well, not really. It still works.
No, but
fine.
I would argue
you're okay.
I would argue that Apple is exceptionally good at taking things, even if they don't do the 5G modem, but the camera, the little tidbits of things that are part of an iPhone, for example. And when they call that out in the September reveal, suddenly people are talking about a tidbit of technology they've never heard of before.
Right, that they need to have.
How it works.
Right.
But Apple makes that part of the, I've got to have this because
Maybe.
it's got the, well, I think they do. I think they do a really good
Sure.
job.
That's the marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's marketing.
But is that, they're a business.
Are people's material lives changed?
They're not our friends.
No, I know. They
want to drain us of every penny we have.
Well, they're doing a good job in my case. Yeah.
All right. So I do, before we wrap up, want to talk about Google sort of following in Apple's footsteps and introducing their version of app tracking transparency to the Android. And that's going to happen. It's not going to be something immediate. I think it's going to happen. It's going to be like sort of a 2-year process.
At least.
Coming to your Android device.
At least 2 years,
maybe
they say.
kind of.
At least 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That press release was filled with all sorts
I was just going to say, talk about
couched language.
Oh, we've heard your privacy concerns, and we'll get back to you in 2024 with something. It's like.
Yeah.
The biggest thing. I'm sorry, Julie. I didn't mean to cut off your intro.
Go ahead.
The biggest thing is that from what we can tell, the whole thing is optional. So if you don't want to do it as an app developer, you don't. So like Facebook's like, well, I don't want to do that, so I won't, unless I'm reading it wrong. It seems as though it's optional, and it's highly suspect whether or not it's going to come out at all. So, and the press release was filled with, Apple does this thing terribly and we're going to do it better. But, okay. Facebook just announced that they're going to lose $10 billion this year because of app tracking transparency. I'd say that means it works pretty well.
One of the things too, just to bring this up briefly, and I don't understand the details or the ins and outs completely, but again, Johnny Evans had written about this for Computer World, talking about that when Google, if it does actually go to do something like this, following Apple's footsteps there, it really could upend like the online advertising market, because that's been so that they've advertisers have gotten so used to such granular data on what users are doing, looking at, apps are using, et cetera. And the more you mask that, whether it's an Apple device or eventually an Android device, the harder it is for advertisers to figure out, who they want to target. And so one of the points that I think Johnny was making in the piece on Computer World was that Google is doing this intentionally, slow rolling it basically to give advertising and advertisers a chance to sort of catch up and figure out how they're going to do what they do if they don't have as much data as they do now. Again, we'll see. I just thought it was an interesting point that he made, that it's not just about privacy. Obviously, advertisers are a huge part of this too, and Google wants to tread lightly if it can, it doesn't want to upset the Apple cart because it makes money off of this.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also Google is upsetting its own cart by doing this.
Yeah.
That's why there's all sorts of caveats.
Yeah.
And that's why it's 2 years from now, and that's why it's not it's as if Apple was the one. And well, it's a direct comparison. So if Apple was making money off of our information,
Mm-hmm.
and then they introduce this app tracking transparency, but so everything now flows through Apple, they're going to make more money. That's how it seems as though it's going to happen. And Google wants us to believe that it's this, benevolent superpower, and maybe they are, but they're still making a ton of money on us and our information and our search results and everything else. So their motivations for doing things like this are way different than Apple's are. So.
And yet, one point to make in terms of that, who is the preferred search engine for Apple's browsers and devices? And it's Google.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple finds a way to make some deals that it has to make too.
Yeah, Apple gets a ton of money from Google.
If Apple
just to have
Apple
the
if Apple really
search.
wanted to totally protect your privacy, then switch to DuckDuckGo or something like that. But they're not going to do that. Google's the name.
Well, you can.
You can.
There's an option on the iPhone.
Apple's not going to do that.
It's not the default, but DuckDuckGo ain't going to pay them, Ken.
Well, bingo.
So I think,
and DuckDuckGo is just Bing anyway. Can we go?
That's true.
As far as results go,
I think I guess it's interesting to see that they followed suit. I remember when Apple rolled out app tracking transparency and announced it. That was sort of, I think, the question that I probably asked the two of you, which was, they're doing this. Are other smartphone manufacturers, but I mean mostly Google because they're the ones making Android, going to follow suit? So it seems like maybe.
I mean, Google had to say something.
That's
true.
To
do something.
That's what they've done. They've said
and it's
something.
been, so what? Apple came out with it last year. They announced it the year before that. It took a little while. It didn't come out with iOS 14. It came out with iOS 14.5. So it took a little bit of time for Apple to roll it out. And so Apple said, okay, it'll be here by September. It wasn't here until March. Google says 2020, what? 4, so it'll be here 2026. I mean, it's at some point Google will have something. And to Google's credit, they have increased their transparency. They have given you more ways to opt out, including all this stuff. Like if you want to dive into your Google account settings, you can opt out of all this stuff. No one does it, but you can. There's lots of toggles and lots of options and lots of settings and lots of things that you can.
Why no one does it? Because they make it so complicated.
Right. What Apple did was they brought that right to the surface. Said, hey, this is going to happen if you don't press this button. Do you want this to happen? And everyone was like, well, no, I don't want that. So they click it. And again, Facebook lost 10 billion and lots of other companies did too. And to say that, Google said it was a blunt tool that was ineffective. And they pointed to a survey by, I forgot the name of the company now, but they're a company that supplies the things that like ad tracking tools on their own. So it's it's a little nebulous to begin with, but by all accounts it works. By all accounts, people don't want to be tracked, and something like 95 or 98% of iPhone users click the do not track button.
Okay.
Now that they know it's there. So how Google is going to navigate all that, I tell you what, we're not going to get a button that says do not track in front of us on Android phones. That is not happening. So it's a matter of how they implement this system.
Sure. So we actually have a question about the 5G modems on LinkedIn. This is a really thorough question, and I'm intrigued to see. I'm intrigued to hear what you guys
punt to Ken before I even hear it.
Hey.
So this viewer is saying instead of built-in iPhone 5G modems that have to be switched off entirely in airports or on airplanes, won't separately portable Wi-Fi 5G hotspots and portable access points have a market or demand, especially for remote iPhone users and travelers? Any thoughts?
Like a little thing you carry with you?
It seems like that's separately portable.
I mean, sure.
But your iPhone basically
we have those
now.
Yeah, we have those now, and they're it's very niche. Like people don't want that. People don't want to carry extra stuff. unless you're super, super duper into privacy and you really want to, have your own little personalized network wherever you go. Like they have those Wi-Fi hotspots and stuff. Like all the carriers sell them.
Yeah.
They're not all that popular. And there's also even the Wi-Fi hotspots. Like Comcast has like a zillion of them. They all stink. Like I have Comcast and I always get prompted to use them. I connect and nothing happens. So that technology is not what people want. People want to be able to pick up their phone, start typing, and it works. And that's it. That's why we have modems built in. That's why 5G is integrated into the chip now, because that's what people want. They want this stuff to act fast, not affect battery life or overheating or anything like that, and they want to not think about it.
They don't have to carry anything extra.
Yeah. I mean, those things are super cool if that's what you're into. And I'm going to guess that 90% of the people would not, even if they were free, just wouldn't bother.
Sure. I'd be curious if this viewer specifically, if that's something that they're interested in. So let us know in the comments if like that's something specifically that is something that you'd be interested in, or like if you sort of use a version of it now. I'd be intrigued.
I've never actually tried one,
mm-hmm.
but I do know they exist, and I do,
mm-hmm.
they, like I said, Verizon, AT&T, like they all sell a version of them. They're pocketable, and I just don't think that that's ever going to really catch on in a mainstream way.
Gotcha. Great. Well, thank you both so much for calling in and chatting. I think a lot of info here, and I think also something that, as I say, I think almost every week, which is, it's evolving. Things are probably going to change. And to Mike's point, maybe we won't even know if Apple puts its custom design.
We absolutely will not. They're not going to tell us. Why would they tell us? Who cares? No one cares.
You don't think
You'll
Qualcomm
tell
will
us.
say Apple has cut us off and is building?
Well, maybe. But
Well,
not
I
during,
bet we know about
but
it.
not during the keynote announcement. Yeah, Qualcomm.
No.
might issue a
We'll
press
hear
release.
about it, but it won't. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just saying that
as you
they're not going to announce it. And here's the new Apple 5G modem. Like that's not happening.
Well, unless, as you said, Michael, it does something new and improved that's worth calling out. If it's just doing the same thing that the Qualcomm modem's doing,
which is
it's
what
not
it will.
exciting.
That's what it's going to do.
Yeah.
It's
We'll
not
see.
it's not the processor. I'm going to bet you $50 right now that Apple does
No,
not
I'll
mention its
lose.
own modem on
No.
the stage when it comes out.
We'll see. We'll revisit.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. And just to wrap up this portable 5G modem topic, this viewer did reply and say that yes, like they were talking about 5G hotspot dongles. So
Right. Okay.
thank you very much for your question. It was super interesting. And yeah, definitely let us know if that's something that you use or that you would be interested in, and like what your use case would be for it, because that seems pretty cool. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can head over to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk. You can subscribe over there, like the video, and you can hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments that we didn't get to, please do let us know in the comments below, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.